in in some significant ways, I really see my work as having nothing substantively to do with composition studies per se. I'm thinking particularly of a composition studies that fetishizes the composed text, the text that is thesis-driven, that develops a logically unfolding argument, it considers counter-arguments, etc. Now, certainly I understand the necessity of training students in the production of these kinds of texts, but I also see the focus on these texts, to use the word I used before, as fetishistic. Time and again, we see the culminating paper in a composition sequence as the research paper. It's this kind of strange genre. A student tackles a topic, attempts to unpack it, sometimes with historical valences, sometimes not. Has an issue, puts forward a thesis, considers arguments, might have a nod towards pathos as a kind of argumentative strategy or possibility for persuasion, and then ultimately considers counter-arguments and refutes them and has a conclusion. And this is supposedly the paradigmatic product for a post-Enlightenment, still relatively rationally driven Habermasian public sphere, and that's all well and good, and it certainly sounds good, and I would like our public sphere to be rationally driven, but it's most often not. And in fact, Michael Warner in Publics and Counterpublics, work that I am increasingly inspired by, talks, I think, very eloquently about the history of the public sphere. And its contemporary manifestation as one in which textuality moves less through the development of rationally driven logical arguments and much more through citationality, through iteration, through the kind of postmodern mixing and matching and pastiche and bricolage that we have come to expect from so much contemporary culture. So it seems to me that composition, in the modality of the fetishization of the composed text, only gets at part of the kind of textual production that is so much a part of our public sphere. It would seem to me that another kind of composition would pay a lot more attention to the kind of media convergent textuality that we are starting to see in the public sphere, and frankly I've been seeing for a couple of decades now. The DIY, the kind of do-it-yourself video that is so prominent on YouTube, for instance, I think reaches the level of real interactive engagement when you see a provocative video and then multiple video responses. Some of those video responses certainly unfolding as rational arguments, many of them not. Many of them serving as remixes, reiterating, reciting, redesigning the original postulations, theses, or arguments in ways that are not necessarily logically driven or rationalist. So it's that kind of textual production, and by that point I'm using text very, very loosely, hopefully in its most capacious way. It's that kind of communicative production that I think most excites me right now, and I think is most in need of study, particularly vis-a-vis its rhetorical participation in the public sphere. And it's precisely that which much composition, contemporary composition studies, doesn't seem particularly invested in.